All right. Well, I'm seeing 2 p.m. here on my clock, which
Me
means
as
we can
well.
get started here. Thanks, everyone, so much for joining us today. I'm Corey Salem, the Director of Sales here at Unique Venues, and I'm here in support of Dr. Michael Brown today as we talk about hiring for success as part of our Business Essential series here at Unique Venues and the online education that we're offering. One thing that I did just want to mention before we get started here today is that every year Unique Venues hosts an annual marketing conference, typically in person in a nice tropical sunny location in fall. Last year we were in Dallas. This year we were slated to be in St. Petersburg, Florida, but the current circumstances has shifted us to a fully virtual event, which actually is really great for the industry because that means that we can welcome as many people as we'd like to these 2 days of networking, best practice, education, wellness, development, and more. I did want to let you know that if you are part of a client or a venue who has signed up for marketing support and lead generation services with Unique Venues, you actually get 2 free registrations for UVAMC. You can purchase additional registrations at the cost of $95, so very affordably. If you're a non-member venue and a planner, you can also register this year. This is the first time we're opening it up to the entire industry. And again, there are affordable rates tied to those registrations if that's something that you are interested in. We are going to be taking this conference from October 26th to the 27th, so just 40 days away. If you have any questions about any of that, feel free to let me know. My email address is Corey, C-O-R-E-Y, @uniquevenues.com. And if you do register for UVAMC, you actually get to hear Dr. Michael Brown present 2 topics on wellness. So you're joining him here today, and you can get to see him again in October over the course of 2 days. How exciting is that? But let's shift focuses for today's session on hiring for talent and success. As usual, if you're a regular attendee of our webinars, you know that you're going to be on mute throughout the entire session. It's just going to be myself and Michael who will be speaking. But if you do want to engage, you're more than welcome to do so through the chat feature. Again, if you select to all attendees and panelists, that message will be seen by everyone on the call today. If it's just 2 panelists, it's myself and Michael that will see it. And if you have specific questions that you'd like to ask Michael and have him address, you can use the Q&A feature in the Zoom dashboard. And through that, if other attendees can go in and upvote the questions that they are most interested in hearing the answer to as well. So that will help us kind of manage the flow of questions on that end. As usual as well, I will be posting a couple of questions and polls to the group today, one on a hiring forecast, one on an attendee status check, and then our usual session evaluation. And without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and pass the mic over to Michael. So thanks for joining us.
Fantastic. Hello, everyone. I'm actually scrolling to see who are the 24 participants joining me today because I feel like I'm developing these incredible relationships through Unique Venues with many, many of you. I'm not sure if any of you have attended any of my previous webinars with Unique Venues, but today marks webinar number 7, which they have been offering free of charge, not only to their partners, but also to the larger world at large, because we find ourselves in incredible times. This pandemic, obviously, we're still in the middle of it. And the hope is that there's hope and there's light at the end of the tunnel, but I'm preparing, even as I work in my variety of roles here at Bowling Green State University in sales and marketing, as well as in my own business of D&B coaching, as a partner with Unique Venues. I'm not sure exactly how long this is going to last. And I think that this notion that we're going to go back to our old normal is short-sighted. There is no old normal. We're developing and creating a new normal. And with that comes along this very important topic of hiring and inspiring the best and the brightest. I've actually renamed the conversation for today, hiring and inspiring the best and the brightest in order to either rebuild or reboot your organization. So actually within the next couple of days, Corey knows this, but I will be sending out, he will be sending out to all of the participants a kind of cool PDF that includes a lot of the content that I'll be sharing with you today. I don't like to use that during the conversation because I don't want to have a presentation. I want to have a conversation with you that's more organic, but you'll get some really great material thereafter to be able to think deeply about this notion of hiring the best and the brightest, but also inspiring those that are on your team to become the best and the brightest, right? During a time, I think that we all admit is a time of rebuilding, for many of us of rebooting, and so forth. So I guess I'll just start with this brief comment, and Corey reminded me today when we were chatting that I've said it before, that in most organizations, we hire way too quickly and we fire way too slowly. And that's sad. I don't think we mean to do that, but usually what happens is we have this desperate situation, this opening, this need, and so we're like, we got to fill it. And then sometimes 3-4 weeks in, sometimes 3 or 4 months in, we kind of go, oh, what have I done? And then it becomes challenging, right, to actually fire and to remove an individual from our team. But this vicious cycle of hiring and firing, if you're anything like me, it just increases our stress levels. It wastes our time. It limits our productivity because, let's be honest, finding and attracting and retaining intrinsically motivated, self-starting, high-performing team members, it feels like, at least for me, this never-ending, seemingly frustrating endeavor. Because I am asking myself, maybe what you're asking, where are all these amazing professionals? Why is it so difficult to build a team that can go the distance and achieve missional objectives? This dilemma, I think, requires revisiting what makes a great candidate. One of the things I'm going to be sharing with you today is helping us to rethink outdated hiring processes and reimagining a bold and bright tomorrow for our organization. I think sometimes the way we do hiring is one of the reasons that we are not hiring, attracting, and inspiring the best and the brightest. So that said, I want to kind of frame a conversation with you today that goes something like this. I want to look at what I would consider to be 5 critical organizational priorities, followed by 5 qualities of fantastic team members to be looking for. And I think there's even, and one of the things that Unique Venues offers all of its partners is we offer a retreat where we can actually use my personal assessment and some evaluation tools to actually make sure it's not a guarantee. Obviously, there's no foolproof guarantee. There's no magical formula. But rethinking some of those questions, rethinking some of the processes so that we're actually getting the best and the brightest. You can actually purchase those and you can hire us through Unique Venues to be able to really dig in and go deep with that. And then also just some considerations, 5 important considerations, 5 qualities of a fantastic team member, and 5 critical organizational priorities. Now, as I look here, there are 28 of you. And so I am really super comfortable at any point. If Corey feels like there's some questions coming, we can redirect the conversation. We can contextualize this to you. I'm not really into presentations. I'm more into conversations. I wish I was actually sitting with you right now, which is hard in this format, but feel free. Raise your hand, ask a question. Let's keep the conversation going in the direction that would be most helpful for you. As you hear me share things that might resonate or have questions about, feel free to interrupt and so forth. I will say this much. This is an exciting time to rebuild and reboot. And this is why. All of us have been going through a lot. And you're going to be able to, the pandemic, I think, is going to be an amazing distinguishing equalizer. We're all going through it, and some of us have chosen to bunker. So, Corey, it was even mentioned in the description that obviously, like the Great Recession of 2008, there's this now great pool of individuals, but there's a lot of folks during this time that have just bunkered, and they've hit the dreaded pandemic pause and have not really continued to become the best version of themselves. And in many ways, you get to kind of hear and see as we start kind of having this conversation, who are the folks that actually leveraged the pandemic? Who are the folks that actually made the most of this time? I think in many ways, that's who you're looking for, because someone who has actually continued to become the best version of themselves and continue to actually stick with their rhythms and their routines and actually use this time for growth and to add value to their organizations that they're currently working in, or even if they are no longer working because maybe they got laid off, or actually continuing to grow and develop in all the different dimensions of life, that's exactly the kind of person you want to hire. Someone who can handle adversity well and someone who can actually stand the test of time. Because let's admit it, In any organization, there's things that are frustrating. There's things that are hard. There are tough situations that emerge every single week. And most notably, there is conflict among team members that need to be navigated with grace and wisdom. In fact, I always joke as I work with several organizations around the country that my job security is the fact that it's hard for people to get along. If everyone just got along, then I would have no reason to do the things that I do, because in many ways, that's what keeps people coming back. I mean, how do people don't get along? And in many ways, that's one of the key elements that I want to encourage you to look for as you're hiring the next generation of leaders in your company or organization. You're looking for people who can handle conflict with maturity, which is a very small fraction of your workforce out there right now. And I also use the term leaders. I think always we should be hiring leaders in regardless of what level of the organization you're looking, meaning they're self-motivated, they're intrinsically motivated, they are self-starting. But also, and I want to make this comment and this is just one little nugget, if I can, early on, in regards to hiring. Don't hire to the position, don't hire the position, hire the person. See, so often I work in higher education. One of my roles is sales and marketing in the university. I lead some learning communities, but we'll see this even in higher education. It's like, if you want to be the director of, I don't know, let's say student activities, well, then you want to start as a coordinator of student activities, and then you become the manager of student activities, and then the assistant director, the associate director, and the director. So typically, as we're going through resumes, we're basically saying, well, clear, if I'm hiring for the associate director of student activities, I'm going to eliminate all resumes that don't show me that this person has been either an assistant director or a manager of student activities. Or what if you have someone that's extraordinary who wants to break into the field and actually has new and creative ideas and has lots of amazing personality qualities that you're going to basically turn away simply because they don't have that experience? Quite honestly, I prefer someone like that. Someone who has fresh ideas and fresh energy, isn't burnt out by a particular industry. Because I think we'd all agree, right? There's people that you can hire. If you hire the right person, meaning the right human being who has character, competence, charisma, communication, and chemistry, we're going to talk about those. If you hire that right person, you can teach them anything. They can learn anything. They can fill any role that you have. The problem is we tend to look at who has the experience. Who has the experience by title. But a lot of people's experiences transcend a particular title, and their experiences and their person and their qualities of human beings can actually, that's the stuff that you want. That is the stuff that you want. So with that said, where to begin? Let's just talk about the 5 critical organizational priorities and see where we kind of go through. And you're going to get this in the content. You're going to get this in the next couple of days because you participated in this webinar. You're going to have all of these bullet points. But just to kind of highlight a couple of things. The first organizational priority is imagining and beginning to think together with your leadership team. What are the characteristics, extraordinary characteristics, and essential competencies required for all of our team positions? So I don't want you to just think in terms of competencies. They can use Microsoft Excel. They know how to do sales. They know, whatever the case. But actually, what are some extraordinary characteristics as well that you want to list? Not just competencies, not just experiences, but characteristics. So imagining as a team, that's the first step. What do we want to be true of this human being? Right? Imagine what those might be. Now, I'm going to pause here just for a second and actually jump down in my notes, and you'll see these in the next couple of days, to what are some qualities, some extraordinary characteristics that I would be looking for. The first of which is character. Now, again, we throw that term around left and right, but this is what I mean by that. That who you are in public is merely a reflection of who you are in private. That you're one person. I'm looking for people that are one person. That wherever they walk and wherever they tread and whatever environment and space they step into, that they are literally that same person. Their character. Now, their character will be revealed in crisis. It will be felt in relationships. But who you are when no one else is looking is who you really are. There's only one of you. So I'm looking for character. because there's a lot of things that's going to touch as I begin to hire, and obviously as you navigate very challenging times. Secondly is competence. They need to be able to do a good job, of course. So again, that's a key quality and characteristic. They're just competent. So if they don't know how to do it, they're going to be self-starting. They're going to learn. They're not always knocking on your door saying, hey, how do I do this? They're going to actually figure it out. And they're just competent human beings. They're used to learning and growing and developing. They're adding value to an organization. They're not just problem spotters, but they're problem solvers, right? That they have tremendous competence. Thirdly, though, and this is a little less tangible, charisma. Now, when people think of charismatic people, they tend to think about public speakers. I'm not at all talking about public speaking. You can be a very charismatic speaker without having relational, emotional charisma. When I think about charisma, this is what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about the person that when they walk into a room, they're more interested in people than being interesting to people. You know the two kind of people, right? When you're walking into a room, you can tell when someone's in there, they're more interested in being interesting than being interested. Charismatic human beings, they're individuals that make other people feel fantastic about themselves. Versus a non-charismatic person is more about that. I feel fantastic about myself, versus a charismatic person who walks into a space and has such life that actually other people leave their presence feeling better about themselves. That's a charismatic person. You find someone who's like that, who's a life giver, again, loving, inquisitive, fun, energetic. It's an acrostic that I use. Generous, inquisitive, intentional, vulnerable, enthusiastic, and responsive. As we do that, as we hire those kind of people, oh my goodness, there's life coming out from every direction. So character, competence, charisma. What about communication? Obviously, communication is important. When I use the term communication in this context, I'm thinking specifically, how do they resolve conflict? In fact, I would propose, and I'll even, if you choose to utilize unique venues in kind of some of these services on hiring and inspiring the best and the brightest, and we can give this to you, is that there's actually going to be questions and there's things that we can lean into to actually ask to figure out, how does this person resolve conflict? Because what I'm looking for is I want to make sure that they're avoiding A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That they are avoiding and that they are far from angry responses, blaming, complaining, defensiveness, excuses, finger pointing, and gossip. Those are the things that are killer communication things. And so I don't want someone working for me that has any of the A, B, C, D, E, F, Gs. Angry responses, blaming, complaining, defensiveness, excuses. You have people on your team that have an excuse for everything. Finger pointing, and gossip. Imagine a work environment where all of those disappeared. Well, the reason they're still there is because chances are when we were hiring individuals, we had no idea. There wasn't a screening process in place to know, because these, what I just described in many ways, this is all about the human being. This is about their spirit and their maturity and their sense of self, right? More than can they do this particular task, and can they make these kind of phone calls, and can they do this kind of sales, and do they have the background of an event specialist, whatever those things are that you're looking for in your particular roles. But I want to know, does A, B, C, D, E, F, G exist? And I'm going to ask very specific questions. I'm going to watch the nonverbals, and I'm going to ask, and I'm going to lean in. And I think in many ways, those are the kinds of things that you're looking for. So communication specifically, how do you interact with someone who you don't get along with? Because the reality is we're not all going to be best friends who we work with, right? But we need to be friendly. And we need to actually be life-giving, right, in those environments. So all that to say, that's the fourth thing. Character, competence, charisma, communication, and then finally chemistry. That very elusive, do they fit? Do we vibe? Is there ethos? Is there chemistry? Now, what I'm not saying is that they need to be like you. Because in many ways, great chemistry might be someone very unique and very different who offers a fantastic perspective that might not perfectly align all the time with what the rest of your team thinks, but it's like they're a great fit. Particularly, imagine someone who has very different perspectives, fresh ideas, creative ways of looking at things, but are also have tremendous charisma and are kind and are generous and are more about we than me. And that's some of the hiring and some of the questions I'm going to be asking. I'm going to be digging in there and saying, I want to know, is this person all about climbing the ladder, or are they feeling called? Am I simply a stepping stone to where they want to go? Actually, one of the things I do, and I'll just mention these briefly too, I'll make sure they're in the notes tomorrow. They're not currently in the PDF that my folks have created, but one of the things I like to do is I do a little survey with folks that I'm hiring. There's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, there's actually 10 things, and I have them rank from 1 to 10, most important, least important, perks and amenities when choosing a career, accepting a position with an organization. So salary, flexible hours, enjoyable coworkers, calling and cause orientation. Are they doing it because they feel called to this? Is there a sense of, I'm passionate about these things? Health benefits, vacation time, retirement package, great boss, promotion opportunities, and then I have the 10th thing is other. Fill in the blank, right? Because in many ways, you're going to learn a lot of person. And now they may be wondering, what's the right answer? What does the person want me to respond, right? But you can dig in it. It's a little tool. It's just 10 quick things. Rank one from 1 to 10, most important, least important. It will give you a lot, because for some folks, they got their eye just on a big salary, right? It's all about the money. And of course we need to make money, but I'm just not going to hire someone who's all about money. I mean, if I discover that, even if they're incredibly gifted, because again, there's going to become a time when that's going to begin to become quite shallow. I need someone who has depth to their human spirit beyond just, because then because they're going to tend to coast. It's like, well, I'm making my paycheck. I got my thing. So let me make this comment too. This is interesting. And again, any questions or things coming up, let me know, Corey. But one of the thoughts I wanted to have real quick is I'm more and more, and I'm encouraging actually corporations, organizations I work with to do this, to hire for 6 months. To actually say, hey, we would love to hire you for the next 6 months and see if you thrive in this role. If you actually so I actually talk about it in terms of, this is for you, the person I'm hiring, that we're going to do 6 months and just see how it goes. So that if it's not a fit, or if it's not really what you thought it would be, and so I put it back in them. And what's happened, you'll find pretty quickly now, if someone's really aspiring and feels called to this position, they'll be like, well, let's go, because they're not concerned, because they know they're going to perform at incredible levels and they're going to add value to the organization. So yeah, let's do 6 months. Now you're not calling it an internship. You're not calling it a temporary, but what you don't want to say is, hey, we're going to test you out, right? But the reality is I'm doing this more and more and simply saying, let's just make sure this works and that we're a good fit together, because we're all about culture and we're about fit and we're about, and when you see someone's eyes light up, like, oh, I want to work at a place like that tells you something versus, I'm not sure I want to, because what they're saying is I want a thing where I can settle in, get my paycheck, and then just kind of do the bare minimum. That's my sense of it. Now, if there's people who are like, man, but I need the security, well, then you continue to perform at high levels. And that's kind of a conversation that I'll have, is that if we make sure there's a fit and that you actually enjoy what you're doing and you have the competencies to be able to do it, you are going to be locked in for years and years, or as long as you want. You're an indispensable part of the team. So I'm going to pause here for a second. Corey, 2:24 p.m. Any thoughts or things popping up, or anything that Q&A?
Yeah, I've got a question here actually.
Please.
That asks, what if the reason that someone is being, primarily for money with the new job is for an external reason, something like they want to move to a safer neighborhood for their kids, or they've got altruistic goals? Any thoughts on that?
No, I think that's great, and in fact, that's what I'm looking for. So if they list that salary is in the top 3, I'm just wanting them to explain that. And that sounds fantastic. That's a great response, and I'm going to be thrilled about that. Again, this isn't a judge. This is the purpose of these questionnaires and some of the work that I'm doing with hiring the right people it's not a judgment. It's simply to understand a little broader the depth of who this person is and what motivates them and what's inspiring to them. The fact that they want to provide for their family and they want to do something that's, you know, like you said, safer or more opportunities. I want to hear about that because that's super altruistic, right? And there's nothing wrong. Like, again, we want to make great salaries, but oftentimes if all I see is a salary, flexible hours, and vacation time as my top three, I'm curious about it. I'm curious about it. And I want to know why, you know. So that's all. It's more just I'm trying to, because again, the reason I'm doing this webinar with you, and I'm guessing the reason you logged in, the 29 of you now who've logged in, is you're wanting to hire the very best, but not just someone who's going to last for 6 weeks, but might actually add value for 6 months or 6 years. And so I guess the biggest takeaway at this point is let's make sure we're looking at things other than the resume, the interview process. So let me just kind of backtrack here. So imagining both extraordinary characteristics as well as competencies in these team positions. And then I've given you 5 of those qualities being character, competence, charisma, communication, and chemistry, right? Me over we, avoiding the A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Secondly, you need to invite qualified candidates to apply and then identify who you're going to actually hire for that position. So I am all about word of mouth. I also have no problem when I'm looking, because obviously I have a life coaching business, consulting. I love going after people that I actually want in a position, inviting people, right? That maybe already are super happy and are having a great time at their other position in another organization. Because anybody who's looking for a job, now some of it could be just the unfortunate scenario of pandemic, but it could also be wanderlust for them, that the grass is always greener somewhere else and they just bounce from place to place. So part of it is if I go after someone who I really want on LinkedIn or has all these, to be able to pursue them, I want to be able to go for the gusto. I want to be able to go for the sky and reach for the stars, right? If I can use that cliche, and to be able to say, man, I want to go after someone who's really awesome, and inviting them, qualified candidates, to actually interview and to sit with me, and then even encourage them for the 6-month period. So that's the second thing. Thirdly, inspiring and instructing all team members to become the best version of themselves personally and professionally. So one of the questions I want to ask is, how have you leveraged the pandemic? How have you leveraged this time during the pandemic? And how has it been for you? Like, it's going to be an interview question for me for a long time, because I think we're going to learn a lot about people by asking that question. And I want to know if they were continuing to be the best version of themselves and continuing to develop. And again, that's one of the reasons I did the wellness webinars with Unique Venues. You know, did they maintain strong relational connections with human beings? Did they maintain physical vitality? Were they taking care of their bodies and their minds and their spirits? Or emotional well-being? How did they handle the stress? Because I was just sharing with Corey off camera. I mean, they're saying now close to 70% of us in America are experiencing even a low-grade level of anxiety and depression during this time. And I felt it. My empathy meter's gone really high during this time, because there's days where I just don't want to get up. I've never experienced that before. I mean, this is really extraordinary times, but I want to see who has spent this time bunkering and who has spent this time building. And I want to encourage them. I want to inspire, and I want to talk about all the time in the organization. So this is now a little bit is not just hiring, but also inspiring, because you don't just want to hire great people. You want to keep great people. You don't just want to recruit great people. You want to retain great people. And the way to retain is job satisfaction. And that includes salary, and that includes vacation hours, right? But it also, it's so much more than that. And so I'm looking to build cultures, and I hope you are as well, to build cultures that really are inspiring people and really value their personal and professional development. Not just professional development, but personal development. I have organizations that hire me to come in, and all of their key leaders get executive coaching sessions with me on their tab, because they just care about who they are out of the office and out of that workspace. So imagining extraordinary characteristics and essential competencies, inviting qualified candidates to apply and identify the best professionals to the team, inspiring, instructing all of your team members to become the best version of themselves personally and professionally. Because remember who we are when we're not, who you are outside of the office and who you are in the office, we're the same person, right? We're the same person. The choices we're making, quite honestly, from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. has more effect on our job performance than anything we could ever imagine. I'm not going to ask them what they do from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., but I want them to continue to be inspired. If they're frustrated at work, if they're drained at work, if they're exhausted at work, if they feel demotivated at work, it might be the workspace, but it might also be the fact that their life is out of whack and they're actually not taking care of themselves. A few more critical organizational priorities. Investing in the well-being of team members in light of their personal and professional aspirations. I want people to know that and I say this to all of my students and staff that I hire here, if you are all in all the time with me and you are fully present in this position and you are seeking to be all in when you're on the clock and really be here, that whenever you decide to leave, I'm gonna give you wings. I'm gonna help you launch out in a way to go wherever you wanted, to do whatever you want. And I will always have your back. I don't take that personally. Because in many ways, if I'm developing leaders, I'm expecting them to leave. Now, I never want someone to leave because the culture I've helped create is lame, or worse yet, toxic, right? Or even if it is toxic, I'm not addressing that toxic culture. But if someone leaves, I want them leaving, kicking and screaming, like, oh, I love this place so much. However, this is an opportunity I just can't say no to. And then just kind of send them off and launch them. So investing in their well-being in light of their personal and professional aspirations, to ask them, what do you want to accomplish in this? What do you want to learn? What do you need to be the very best in this position? And what do you need to be the best version of yourself? Like, I want to come alongside of you and help you do that, right? To be an empowerer, to empower people, to inspire people. And then finally, implement a strong mentoring and training program that is energizing and empowering. So part of hiring and inspiring and recruiting the best is when they know if they're going to come work for me, or they're going to work for my office, or that there's this training program in place. We call it the Standout Customer Service Training Program. And what it means to be standout human beings, standout customer service. We're actually going to be looking very specifically as a part of that program, and a lot of this work I've done even with Unique Venues and their executive team and so forth. But I want to look at their personalities. I want to look at their passions. I want to look at their proficiencies, their presence, and their performance. And I actually have, in fact, when people come into work every day, they look and review the top 10 workplace habits every day. Before they start, I want them to do that. And just what does it really look like? To not just view this as a job, but as a calling. And it's a place where, because I'm here, I am being developed, I am being trained, I am being mentored, and not just enough to do the job that I'm asked to do, like just enough to do the job I'm asked to do, but my folks get to choose. Unique Venues does great with this. And I hope many of your organizations do as well. They get to choose other things outside of the office that they can do and are being paid for. And again, you end up saving so much money and energy by retaining fantastic people. Then you get them in the door, they settle into their office, and then we just kind of expect that they do their jobs. We all need inspiration. We all need encouragement. We all long for mentors who care about us, not as a means to an end, but as an end in itself. I'm going to care for you just enough so that you'll perform the way I need you to perform my organization, versus I care for you as a human being and I'm mentoring you. What are your dreams and aspirations? I want to make sure there's a mentoring and training program that is energizing and empowering at every level of the organization. So I'll pause here, field some questions, and then I have just 5 important considerations as I wrap up our conversation post Q&A.
Here's a question for you, Michael.
Yes.
I'm just going to read it word for word.
Please.
I can see how traditional hiring practices yield an ability to identify competence, communication, chemistry, and to an extent, charisma. Are you able to share any experience or experiences in successfully or unsuccessfully identifying and finding candidates with great character, aside from the approach of identifying the good, bad character after hiring and then accordingly effective with termination practices?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I'm not sure who asked that question, but I think I'm still developing. And I think that if you think that the typical hiring processes can identify charisma, as well as chemistry, that's fantastic. So my guess is you have probably a lengthy and a very comprehensive hiring strategy, because typically most people they're able to find competencies, um, but usually the other qualities are just harder to find. Now, in regards to character, part of me is part of me I want to talk. This is me being a life coach, right? And this is me being, a consultant as well. I'm just always watching people. So I'm just going to talk about character. I'm going to say this is what's so important to me is character, and more just watch their nonverbals and see how they respond, and maybe even ask them to define it. Part of it is I like to ask questions that kind of create disequilibrium for the interviewee. Right? A question that just catches people off guard, because really good interviewers may not be really fantastic team members, right? They're just able to kill it in an interview. So I want to create interview questions that they're not expecting, and one of them might be, what role would you, first of all, would you be willing to describe for me what you would consider to be good character? And then what role do you feel like character plays within a team or organization? I'm just curious if they literally have never, you'll know if they've never considered that notion. Or even just ask, I love asking for examples. Have you ever worked with someone who lacked character? Can you give that example? Obviously without sharing names and even specific situations, but and what did that look like, and how did that affect you and the team? And just listen to that. Now, one of the things I most like to ask, not most, but like I said, questions that create disequilibrium is I'm gonna, and I'll share this even now, is this notion. I don't just want to ask the what and when questions. What can you do? When did you do it? Tell me your resume, your background. But the who and the why questions. In fact, one of my favorite interview questions, and they almost become comical at this point, is I just have one final question before we end our interview today. The person's already answered. The question is quite simple. Who are you? The look on people's faces when I ask that question. And I expect that it's going to be a little awkward, but it's interesting. Those who have answered that question most proficiently tend to have shown that they are incredible team members long term. In fact, if I ask most individuals, I don't care if you're 5 years old or 15 years old or 50 years old, and I say to people, so who do you want to be when you grow up? Most human beings don't know how to answer that question because they answer it incorrectly every time I ask it. In fact, I can't think of the last time that I've asked that question of anyone. Who do you want to be when you grow up? I have a 12-year-old son. I have 9 children, actually, from 26 down to 12. That's another whole conversation. But my 12-year-old, I like asking his friends, who do you want to be when you grow up? And it's always, they give me a doctor, an astronaut, an architect, the president, And I'm like, that's the question I ask, not what do you want to do as a job, but who do you want to be? Who do you want to be when you grow up? We don't even know how to answer that question. And so in many ways, if you can, or at least give me some sense of understanding that my life is bigger than my career, that my identity is in no way connected to my job, you're probably already positioned to do an extraordinary great job within my team. There's a few thoughts about that. Other questions that are popping up, Corey?
We're getting lots and lots now.
Okay.
So I'm just going to ask these chronologically.
Let's go.
They came in. How do you handle union position in regards to your initial statement of hiring too fast and letting go too slow?
Yeah, that's hard. Obviously, I don't work in a union. I work at a university. But in many ways, at university, we've always joked, it's the reality is you have to really document significant failure and incompetency to be able to get someone fired. So that's why I kind of like, and again, with the 6-month rule, I mean, you obviously, every context is different, but that's why the purpose of this webinar is you want to be really careful. And obviously there's questions you can't ask. And I don't think I've asked anything that would be out of line at this point. I mean, I know you typically can't ask, are you married or do you have children or and again, but you can find out things just by, and obviously references are important, but I want to go deep dive into reference. I want references. I want references. But typically the three references that someone give you are the three people are going to say out incredible things, right? I mean, you're not going to give someone who's like, well, that person's so-so. But great question. It obviously you need to stay within the protocol and the legalities of your particular hiring process. But one thing that's true of all, regardless of what that looks like, we can go a little slower and a little more careful in regards to just filling positions. Because we're going to lose money in the long run if we do that. Not to mention our stress. I mean, those hiring, it's so stressful to keep hiring and hiring and hiring and hiring just to fill positions. And by going a little slower, we increase our productivity as an organization down the road. Next question, Corey.
I think a good segue after that is, in higher education, we are often forced into an inflexible hiring process that doesn't always garner the best candidate, but more likely the one with the most available time and ability for bureaucracy. How do you adapt?
Yep. And so that's challenging because, again, even who HR might allow to be in that pool for interviewing. So again, you have to take these kind of high level principles, and that's why I'm kind of keeping it at that level without getting really into the minutia. Now, obviously, if you were to have us work with you and brought you into your organization to actually design something, but at the very least, we can design questions that I think could help really kind of not allow someone to hit cruise control when they walk into an interview, right? Which typically we can do. Now, I don't know if within your higher education context, if you don't have some flexibility with questions and so forth. We have a lot of flexibility, at least with questions. But yeah, you're right, with the protocol and what that looks like and how it works. I like how you said with the bureaucracy, someone who knows how to work the system is going to be the person who gets the job. So, which is why I'm not trying to get around that. I'm just trying to add in some extra layers of protection and some investigation and so forth. But I think one of the things I like to do, and if I may just interject this now, is I want to scare people. Meaning this, not scare people, that's not the best, but I actually want people to pause before they take the job. Meaning, just so you know, my idea of a fantastic employee and what would best fit within our team is someone who's all in all the time. Their phone's in their drawer throughout the day. They're not scrolling. They are always thinking, how can I add value to the organization? They're not just spotting problems, they're solving problems. I start creating this composite, this verbal, I think this is what this person looks like. And those who tend to stay with us long-term tend to have these characteristics and these qualities. And so you seem like you're a fantastic fit. And so in many ways then I'm not making the decision, I'm gonna make sure they're making the decision. But this is and what I like to say is, and I've done this even as I've taught, I love teaching. This is how I best, because I have a PhD in higher education. So I like to teach as well occasionally on campus. And one of the things that, students are looking for the easy A, right? Like, I just want to do the bare minimum. And I'm looking, so I'll just say that. If you're looking just to get easy A and to do the bare minimum, I think I teach one of the most fantastic classes on campus that will be one of the hardest courses you ever take. And I want the person who goes, oh, that sounds awesome, versus, no, I was looking for the easy A. I'm trying to identify those things too, because I want to create this notion that, man, this is an intense job. And we are all in here. And this is, actually, it's not even a job for us. It's a calling, and it's a career. It's a vocation, just an occupation. And I'll use some of that language, and so that people go, man, this is intense. But they're also going to say, here are the tremendous benefits. We're all in with you. We'll launch you anywhere you want to go. You have letter recommendations that are going to be extraordinary. You're going to feel amazing when you lay your head down at the end of the day. You're going to be like, man, I killed it, and I'm a part of something exciting and meaningful and so forth. So I could talk about that for hours. And that's a workshop that we might do with your organization at some point. Corey, other questions? Keep them coming.
Looking at candidates who seem overqualified on paper, this individual said they're not sure if they should bring them in for an interview. and they're not sure because they don't know if that employee is going to be a short-time employee and only want a job until another opportunity comes by for them. Any thoughts
Yeah,
on
so
that?
and again, this interestingly you mentioned that because that's what we tend to think. They're overqualified, so probably they lost their job and they're looking for something to make ends meet at this point in time. And once they find something better, they'll move on. Well, that's when the responsibility becomes for us as a culture. Do we create a space, do we create an organization that actually might keep that extremely qualified, even overqualified person connected to our organization? And they might actually be in a position that, is called this and is only paying at this level. But if I trust them and I empower them and I inspire them and they feel mentored, they may stay there for a while, right? And so I would rather hire someone, even again, if it's short term, I would rather hire someone like that because I think I can create a culture that will keep even those best and those brightest. And they'll have to really scratch their head and think, do I want to go make $30,000 more a year, or do I want to be connected to Michael Brown and his team? So I tend to not have a problem with bringing in an overqualified person, But again, but I'm also curious, and I'm hoping they'll share this with me. Why? Maybe they're looking for a job shift. Maybe they're looking for a vocation shift. And so there's a lot of different reasons why people are doing that. I don't just want to assume that, maybe they didn't perform well or they were laid off or whatever. So, but I see it as a challenge. Because even the 3 to 6 months that person might give me will be amazing. It might help me build something that's extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
Corey?
Very cool.
Other questions coming?
Yep. In higher education, our hiring timeline is often extended. How do you keep a top candidate interested until you can make an offer?
I build a human connection with them that is so strong. And I make sure, and again, part of it is, this is what's interesting. We think about hiring. We think about the notion of, I want to find the right person versus being the best place. So for instance, I do a lot of life coaching, right? So everyone's always saying to me, I have 12 dimensions of life. One of them is relational dimension. And I can tell you, so many people say to me, man, I would love to have a best friend. I would love to just have an extraordinary. Say, what's the qualities you're looking for in a best friend? And you tell me all the best friend qualities. And then I'll say, well, why don't we spend the next few months actually becoming the kind of friend that would attract that kind of person? Mm-hmm. See, become the best friend that you want to find. And so in many ways, I want someone to leave an interview with me or even with my team, and as they interact and be like, man, it's worth the wait. So again, it may be hard to do at this point in a very short period of time, but I think a human connection where they feel encouraged, inspired, and trusted. And again, if I'm charismatic with them, right, where I'm continuing, and I'm not doing it, and part of it is this, it's about becoming the right kind of person. If I'm just holding them on because I need them versus I am making a human connection with them as an end in itself and not a means to an end, they're going to feel that. People smell an agenda a mile away. And I tell you what, when they encounter sincerity and true generosity and kindness, people are struck by it. Those are my thoughts on that.
Very cool. And one more for you for now.
Good. And then I'll close out with my few things.
Cool.
Yep.
So obviously a lot of what we're talking about today, we're talking to individuals who might be a part of a larger organization, which
Sure.
might require hiring teams or hiring committees. So aside from maybe some of the consultative support that these organizations or campuses could hire you or unique venues for in support of, do you have any advice for folks to maybe take away today that will help them inspire their hiring team to look for these qualities in the candidate that they're considering?
Well, you set me up for my final 5 considerations.
I wish I could take the credit.
Plant that. Yeah, so here's how I wrap up our conversation. 5 considerations that I would share with any hiring team and share with anybody who's in charge of doing this. And you'll have this in your content as well that will come out in the next couple of days to you. First of all, look for maturity, mindset, and motivation. I call it the 3 M's. I have my eyes out for maturity, mindset, and motivation. Those are my 3 M's. I'm looking really closely. I'm looking for someone who is emotionally mature. We talk a lot about emotional intelligence these days, or relationally mature, can handle conflict. Like, what is their maturity? Not their age. They might be 23 years old and mature beyond their years, or they might be 48 and you're thinking, man, I'm interacting with a 22-year-old, right? Whatever the case may be. But I'm looking for depth and breadth and life experiences, but also this tremendous wisdom. It just comes from just living life well, right? Not just knowledge, because again, knowledge is the ability to accumulate facts and ideas. Wisdom is the ability to live life well. So I'm looking for that kind of maturity. Secondly, mindset. I'm looking for a positive mindset. I'm looking for a problem-solving mindset. I'm looking for an upbeat mindset. I'm an all-in. My hand is raised. I'm volunteering. I'm looking for positivity. I'm looking for hope. I'm looking for energy. I'm looking for enthusiasm, right? What is their mindset? And I'm mostly looking for selflessness. That life is more about we than me, right? Again, we're in the middle of a almost soon presidential election, so I'll make this. I'm not going to make any presidential statements who I'm voting for, but I have my entire family. We've committed that when we think about who we vote for president, we refuse to take into consideration what does our family need most. But we think, what do others need most? And that's how we vote. So I want that kind of mindset, that other-centered, that selfless, that other, that's I think. And then finally, motivation. I want to hear about, I want to see that this person has taken steps and have been motivated regardless of the fact that someone told them something to do. What are things that this individual has done simply because they decided, I'm going to wake up early and I'm going to actually do these things because I am intrinsically motivated. So I'm looking for maturity, mindset, motivation. That's my first consideration. Second consideration, I'm going to be asking specifically about values, vision, and victories. So I'm looking for maturity, mindset, motivation. I'm asking about values, vision, and victories, the 3 V's, right? And I want to know what are their core values, the things that they most care about, that are most important to them. I want to hear, and I don't just want to hear the typical core, like, what are your core values? I'm going to probably frame that in a different way. I'm going to be digging in a different way to actually ask, what are the things I most care about? The passions, the causes, the philanthropies. What are my values? Who do I want to be? What do I want to be said about me at the end of my life? Which kind of ties into vision. What is their vision for their life? What do they imagine for themselves at 75 years old or 80 or 100 years old, right? What is their vision for who they want to become? Not just what they want to do, not just how much is in their retirement package, but who they're becoming, right? I'll ask that question. I'll say, we don't wake up someday having become someone we've not been becoming. Who do you want to become? How do you envision yourself? Who do you envision yourself to be at 80 or 90 or 100 years old? I'm going to ask questions. And victories. Where have you won? Where do you win? And I want to hear about accomplishments. I think we all do, right? What I don't want to hear what I don't want to hear is I'm a good team member. I'm a team player. I'm organized. I'm trying to think of other generic terms. You've seen them all, right? Hardworking, good work ethic. No, give me victories. What have you actually accomplished? And I'm going to ask very pointedly about that. So that's my second thing. Third thing, I'm going to inquire about conflict resolution. I'm going to dig, before I ever hire anyone, I'm going to ask very specifically for them to describe difficult workplace relationships that they have had and how they have contributed to those difficult workplace relationships. Because in any of our relationships, it takes 2 to tango. So I want to know, talk to me about someone you didn't get along with, and then how did you handle that situation? And I'm listening very carefully to whether they've taken ownership, if it's an objective, if there's objectivity, and if there's optimism. Like, yeah, it was tough, it was hard, we worked through it. Here's how I contributed, here's how they contributed, here's how I sought to solve that situation beyond blaming, complaining, defensiveness, excuses, finger pointing and gossip. But I'm going to spend some good time there because you will learn so much. Let me say it this way. The most important skill that I think any human being has is the ability to resolve conflict. It's the most important thing. And if you can do that well, it's my personal opinion and conviction that there's probably nothing you can't do well because it's so hard. I mean, how many of you are like, wow, I really like conflict. I'm looking forward to that next really hard conversation that I need to confront someone, or I really enjoy when someone comes in and closes the door behind me behind themselves, and they come to my office, sit down and tell me the things that I'm doing wrong and the areas where they want me to improve. I tell you what, if you can handle that with grace and kindness and generosity and open-mindedness, I want you on my team yesterday. So that's the fourth thing. I'm referencing difficult workplace relationships. I want to watch how they are taking ownership of their objective, they're optimistic. And then finally, I just want you to pose interesting questions. I mentioned this about not just the what's and the when's, but the who's and the why's. Who are you? Why are you feeling called to this position? Even in my own life, I'd even probably say this, I designate Wednesdays as why Wednesdays, where I'm asking myself the question, why do I do the things that I do? And are they producing the outcomes that I want in my life? I'm curious, why do you do the things that you do? And do you feel like that? And I want to know why they're doing the things they do. I want to know who they are. And there's a series of questions, and obviously you can make those up even as you're sitting with someone, but I'm exploring that. And those are some practices that I would give hiring teams. Again, just quickly to review, look for maturity, mindset, and motivation, ask about values, vision, and victories, and then inquire about their perspective and practices regarding conflict resolution, and then also have them describe, this is number 4, describing difficult workplace relationships and how they've navigated those, and then finally, posing interesting questions of the who and the why, and not just the what. That's 30,000 feet on hiring, inspiring the best and the brightest, right? For rebuilding or rebooting your organization during and post-pandemic. And hopefully that's been helpful to you today. And you're going to get some information they'll send your way, and that Corey will send your way thereafter. And obviously you can always reach out to me. You can find me at DMB Coaching on Instagram, where I'm posting daily thoughts that go along with these kinds of things. And then I also have my own podcast called the 3 Words Podcast, where every Monday morning at 7 a.m. we drop 3 words that are 12-minute podcasts that hopefully will help you and your organizations become the best version of themselves inside and outside the office. So,
Very cool.
It's 2:58, my friend.
It is right in the nick of time. I'm going to drop your handle and the 3 Words Podcast in the chat right now.
Awesome.
So there we go. And just share the fun post-session information. So just so you know, we've taken off the last couple of weeks as we entered September to kind of lay out a schedule of events. And here it is through the end of this month. And then we'll also have October information shared, most likely by that September 30th session. But tomorrow, Jewel Hoff, our Director of Research, Education, and Consultation, is going to be live on Facebook at 1:15 Eastern Time in our Data Bites section, where he kind of looks at some of the data that we've been able to collect and provide some high-level information. So keep your eyes open for that. That's going to be on the Unique Venues Facebook page. Next Tuesday, another Business Essentials topic on marketing, specifically developing and managing drip campaigns. So that'll be great at 2 p.m. Eastern. Thursday, if you are a venue professional who's tied to a venue client, you can participate in a professional group therapy. You can call in, talk about your challenges, struggles, look for tips, or just even share with a group of other like-minded professionals. That's usually moderated by Jewel Hoff and another staff member. And then on Wednesday, September 30th at 2 p.m., we have an industry expert panel managing the impact of COVID-19. And just one more reminder, I know that I put a note in the chat as well, but October 26th and 27th, UVAMC, we really hope that you can join us. Dr. Michael Brown will be leading 2 sessions on wellness. And if you're a client, you can register for free or additionally at a small cost. And then non-members and planners, you can register for that as well. Thanks everyone though for joining us today. It's 3 p.m. Eastern time. I'm going to end the session here, but we hope to see you again at another Unique Venues educational opportunity down the road. Thanks, Michael. Take care, everyone.